Oh, it's cupcake.
How about you?
The one that's like the data presentation. That's the this is ours.
Or like, what about?
Yes.
But we also have
This one.
Anything that we call
That way I can.
Okay. We're not going to do anything about this either.
I gotta make
That data. Okay.
Oh, somebody knows I like this.
Okay.
I went to college for next summer.
I
You just open it up and you stick the iPad in there.
I'm running quick to
I am running quick. Yes.
quit the middle of the meeting.
I'm really quick.
That's why. Otherwise, I would have had you. I don't know. Do you have a stand we can use?
Just trying to fuck yourself.
Yes.
We're trying to find a way to prop her up.
Yeah, we look.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Really, I feel like that top one. I can't see.
There we go. It's only got 16.
Stresses me out.
I'm the same way.
Pretty good.
And then like 20 emails later.
Yeah. Because they're in order. Yeah, they're in order.
Order, and it's like,
All right, you're looking at how into the audience. Good.
That's my reason. If it's something that I didn't get into right away, I can tell and it goes in. We got her up. Just if you're a title for just here's the general capstone, but then posting. Yeah. So I worked on those. It took hours for tech solutions, and then I put it in, made them out, and I put them all in everything dry, and shared them out. That was like one of those like I don't know. Dennis and I were watching so it was nice. Just to see for a guy who seems very enjoying. He said, I took a look at him.
so is it?
It just turns the screen off.
Oh no, they
I'm going. But I mean, we have to have one more advance.
no, it's the assistants.
Oh, no, that's part of the deal. You had to see the whole schedule of events. And no, there's anyone who's talking about that. Maybe I'll bring them. No. It's gonna be working. Plan that in
I have one. Thank you.
Renee, you gave
I have coffee.
you want one?
Hey Patrick, you got some more girl cake up there? Do you have more girl cake up there? But then it just
I don't know
makes
where
us
I got
start.
it. She got pink, I see. Man.
Actually, thanks, I know, I wasn't as My girls hate us. That's not what.
All right, good evening. Thank you for being patient with us this evening. We are just running slightly behind schedule, but perfect. So with it being 7:11, I call the Francis Hall School Board meeting to order. If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, we have our Pledge of Allegiance led by the team from Francis Hall High School. It's a fine looking team.
I pledge allegiance
Or I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lang, seconded by Mr. Lang, by roll call.
Mr. Lane?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. What about Michelle?
We got Michelle there, right?
She said aye.
She said,
Second. Motion carries 6-0. All right, next on our agenda is recognitions. Mr. Dykeman.
Thank you, Mrs. Coe. First, to introduce our student board representative for January is Heritage Landing Principal, Dr. Tony Hahn.
Hello, and thank you for having us here this evening. I wanted to welcome Eric Underdown. If you can come on up, please. Eric is a senior at Heritage. He's set to graduate in May. He is currently in his second year at Lewis and Clark Technical School, finishing up his welding program there, so he'll leave with a certificate as well. And another accomplishment I want to make sure I acknowledge is that he finished his Eagle Scout last month. So opportunity of knowing him for a few years now, I believe, 8 years. When I was at Cosley, I actually worked with Eric there as well, so it's kind of neat to see him grow, not just physically, but in a lot of other ways as well. So I want to welcome him and thank him for coming. So, thank you.
Picture, so if you'll come down front with Tony and you got folks here or anything?
What was your Eagle Scout project?
Might have to kneel.
You're all right, I'll move to the side. I promise.
We've learned to shift this way. You can be by this way.
There we go.
That's all right.
It works. Here's good
Especially next to you.
Let me get one more. Thank you.
If I could get the Francis Howell High School team to join me up here again.
Hi. Thanks for coming. I'm gonna have you move in one seat.
Slide over.
Yeah. One seat here.
There are always some monumental incidents that occur in our lives that when we think back, we can always remember exactly where we were and what we were doing when we heard the news. For many of us, the shooting of Francis Howell High School teacher Carl Wayne is now one of those indelible memories. But the rally and response of the entire Francis Howell High School team helped to ensure that the incident was a triumph and not a tragedy. November 29th was a sunny and unseasonably warm day, luckily an early dismissal day at Francis Howell High School. Carl was jogging on a trail just south of the campus when he passed a stranger who, inexplicably, turned and fired several shots, striking Carl once in the back with a 9mm slug. Carl was able to make it to Highway D, where he flagged down a passerby who stopped to pick him up and took him back to the school. A.D. Sean Irwin was the first to see Carl when he came into the building, and he initiated medical and security assistance. Trainer Coney Elmendorf responded and began to administer first aid. He was soon joined by Golden Girls coach Courtney Kassenbaum, who luckily is a trauma nurse in real life and is working in the ER tonight. SRO Brett Jansen, right behind me, was the first officer on the scene, and he communicated with the St. Charles County Police regarding security and the threat to the building. He's here tonight representing all of the great officers from the department that helped that day and helped to apprehend the suspect the next day. Activities AA Gina Kearns coordinated communications with all of the coaches, and track coach Ryan Taylor helped to get all of the students into the building. Principal Dave Wedlock, PE teacher Kevin Stroh, and English teacher Sean Wheeler organized students during the lockdown and supervised their release to parents. And then there's Carl Wayne. Most of us luckily can't imagine what it would be like to get shot. But we can imagine that for most shooting victims, when getting picked up by a good Samaritan, their first request would be, "Please take me to the emergency room and hurry." But not Carl. He asked to be taken back to school. His first thought was not of himself and his safety, but rather the safety of the students and staff still at the school. His first instinct was to go back and warn and protect others. That selfless act made Carl a hero and not a victim. Ladies and gentlemen, Francis Howell High School teacher and coach, Mr. Carl Wayne.
Oh, you too? That makes you feel a little better. Some people my height in this picture, at least.
All right, squeeze in the front row. At an angle.
Angle your side.
And I need the front row to slide down. Front row, can you slide down? Yes.
Step to your left.
There you go. All right, squeeze in towards Dr. Hendricks' hairs, please. All right, there we go.
Hi, Kevin.
Thank you.
Hold on, let me make sure everyone else, did you guys get yours? Hold on 1 second. Okay, this is everybody. How you doing?
Last but not least, next week is School Board Recognition Week. The Francis Hall School District joins school districts across the state honoring the dedicated service of local school boards of education during next week's Missouri's annual School Board Recognition Week. Tonight I want to express our appreciation for your work and for all you do for our students. The Francis Hall School Board members volunteered countless hours serving Francis Hall School District children's, parents, staff members, and community patrons. These public servants are elected by Francis Hall voters and do not receive compensation for their tireless efforts, no matter what you read. In any given week, our board can be seen at school events, attending their committee meetings, preparing for or attending a board meeting like they are tonight, and talking with constituents. It's a time-intense volunteer job where often difficult decisions have to be made. Their work and commitment are greatly appreciated and critical to the success of our students in our district. Thank you to the members of the 17-18 Francis Hall Board of Education for their leadership and dedicated service. We have some certificates from MSBA. So, to Board President Renee Coe. Vice President Chad Lang. Secretary Sandy Ferguson. Director Mike Kane. Director Patrick Lane. And I'm not sure how to give Michelle's hers first.
Just of the board?
Yeah. You want to grab Michelle?
I'll move ya.
She's plugged out. She's plugged out. You can't move.
Can I unplug it?
Yes.
It's got 18%.
Come stand by Patrick. Just hold it right up your face.
Hold this
here.
front of your
Hold
face.
it right up your face.
That's perfect.
So as Dr. Hendricks said, we have to make a lot of tough decisions, so it's great to have a little chuckle every once in a while. So. Okay. Next on our agenda is patron comments. Do you have any patron comments this evening? No, thank you. FHEA. Peace Fund. SAA. Board, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Ferguson, seconded by Mr. Lang. By roll call.
Ms. Walker.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 6-0. I'll pause for just a minute because I did forget to welcome Eric. Eric, so happy to have you with us here this evening. We are excited you can join us. sitting up here with us at the board, you get to participate with any comments or questions that you may have. The only thing you don't get to do is vote with us. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right, thanks for joining us. And Mr. Hain will help you if you need any help with the technology following along. Apologize. Okay. Board, next on our agenda is our best practice, our safety initiatives. Mr. Butler.
Good evening, board. Dr. Mary Hendricks Harris, Executive Cabinet. So we're here tonight to talk a little bit about safety. I've got Mr. Jason Griesenauer with me. He's our district safety manager as well. So you can go to the next slide, Vicki, thanks. So over the last 2 years, how is a microcosm of our culture? Safety is becoming more and more important to us as, acts go up and things that we have to deal with increase. So, and we're not alone in that. So I listed out some of the things that we've dealt with over the past 2 years, just in our district alone. We had guns and ammo. We had a gun and ammo found in a ceiling at a middle school of ours. We had a bus fire with over 40 kids on board that had to be evacuated. We had multiple exterior lockdowns due to police pursuits. We had an ice storm that trapped 50 kids on multiple buses. I think we celebrated that anniversary about in mid-December of this year. Threats of violence to schools, whether those be bomb threats or notes we find that we have to deal with. We had 3 major electrical failures last year that actually shut down our schools, just from infrastructure problems. We actually had district lockdown after 2 individuals shot into a home, actually just down the road last year. We had a fire in a bathroom at a local middle school, or one of our middle schools, and then obviously, as we just heard, we had one of our teachers shot while jogging in close proximity to a high school. So this isn't all of it, but it's some of it. And I think when you reflect on it and just look at this on a slide over the past 2 years, it really becomes real just how big this place is and just how some of the things that we have to deal with on an ongoing basis. So what do? This is what we do to help. So we have annual safety protocols. These are things that have been in place for years now, but just to kind of review the major items, we ask that our school do annual drills. And of those drills, they do 10 fire drills. When we talk about fire drills, we really mean evacuation drills and accountability drills. So we ask once a month our schools go outside, pull the fire alarm, go outside, run a drill, and then check accountability. And accountability is a big deal, making sure every kid is out of the building and accounted for, so we can talk to our first responders if they need to go in or if it's a search and rescue or whatever. So some of our schools have been very proactive in doing these during lunch, recess, very inopportune times, and I applaud a lot of them for that work. We do 2 earthquake drills. We do 2 tornado drills. We're getting ready to enter tornado season here in about a month. And then we do actually 3 active shooter drills a year. 2 are done by the school themselves. They schedule their own drills. And then we do 1 unannounced drill at each school location throughout the school year. Come back to that in a second. Jason performs safety audits at every one of our buildings. So he goes into classrooms, he looks for class rosters. Do you have your emergency contact stuff right? So we go through all those. We look at every one of our schools. Those are done randomly and more than a surprise way. So just to make sure and then if we find something that's not right, we make sure to correct it right there and have a conversation with the staff about what we can do to improve. Bleachers and playgrounds are another area a lot of us don't think about, but we have a lot of bleachers and playgrounds and athletic equipment in our district. We do inspect those on an annual basis, just to make sure that no frayed wires, the handrails aren't coming apart. You've been to our football games, there's a lot of kids in those bleachers. So we want to make sure that those are safe and that everything's going the way it should. So we have a safety committee that meets once a month that Jason chairs, and we try to get input from staff and principals about some of the future things that we'll be making recommendations to the board to do. We do an annual safety training for all teachers and staff. We go out and meet with each school once a year for about an hour and just talk about all the things that may be changing in the world of safety. It's similar kind of to this presentation, and then we do a Q&A with them to kind of help them understand where we're going. And then I think the other thing that's probably the most important thing we do is, and Jason really is in the lead in this, is building relationships with first responders. So, and it's not just our SROs, it's our fire departments. We work with St. Charles County Emergency Response. There's a lady by the name of Ina who works there. She comes out and audits our buildings and makes sure that our tornado safe places are proper and the best place to go and shelter. So we do a lot of work in that sense as well. So a lot of this is happening behind the scenes, and it's something that can be forgotten about, but we're doing a lot of good work in that area. So you can go and change it, Vicki. And then some of the things that changed this year in regarding to safety. So we started doing unannounced intruder drills this year, and we no longer take into account school schedules. So we literally just pick a school, show up, and whatever they're doing, we're running the drill. So if it's lunchtime, we're running the drill. If it's recess, we're running the drill. If it's Grandparents' Day, we're gonna run the drill. Because, it was a little, we had some nervous people at first, but honestly, our schools have performed better during these surprise drills and even during the scheduled ones, which has been really, really good to see. We actually, if you drive by our buildings now, you'll see room numbers on all exterior windows. That was something we asked all of our schools to start doing this year. That came from our first responders. It's something that they asked to start happening. So if there was an incident, then we tell them we have a student in need in room 111, they can go right to the outside and see where 111 is and maybe get access to the roof or something like that. So that was a change. We added 41 access control points to our buildings last year. Those are fobs that you can fob in and make sure you get in. We no longer use exterior keys. We use fobs, and that's much safer. When someone loses a key, we just turn the fob off. We don't have to rekey an entire building if someone leaves a key or loses their keys or something like that. So that's been a really great improvement that we've made. We have a lot of additional surveillance at our high school stadiums and middle schools, so cameras. It's becoming a big thing in safety and security world. You hear about that with cities, but we've actually made some good strides in building a good infrastructure for our camera systems and adding cameras as we can. We did a major upgrade at Francis Hall North for our fire system. We had the original fire alarm panels and systems and strobes still in that building, so we went in this summer and took that all out and put in a state-of-the-art fire panel, so that's a good thing. We can all sleep a little better at night knowing that. And then lastly, we've sent our administration this year through 4E training, which stands for educate, evacuate, engage, and evade.
It's educate, evade, escape, or engage.
Yeah, thank you. I was getting the easy stuff. Thank you, Jason, that's why he's here. So.
Say that again, because I kind of have to write that down.
This is the training when they do shoot the blank guns. They make you feel like what it's going to actually feel like. They really test you and then get your blood pumping and really get acclimated to what a real situation would be like. The safety committee is actually making a recommendation that all of our staff go through that over the next 2 years. So, again, just something that we're doing to really get things going. And then I'll just close by saying that I think there is a really good culture of safety at Howe. I think we work really hard to try to make sure that people are keeping an eye on our buildings. I went to a building today and they wouldn't let me in the door because they didn't have my name tag on. And the lady didn't know me and I wasn't getting in that building. And I think things like that happen all the time at Howe, and we might not always see them, but I think the culture here really is one of safety, and I think we all thank you and the executive cabinet and Dr. Mary Hendricks Harris for giving us support to do that for our kids. So that's what I have. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Can you say the 4E thing again? Because I was writing it down and you said it too fast.
I'll let Jason handle that.
It's educate, evade, escape, or engage.
It's the same as the OWLS training, run, hide, fight. They're all pretty much the same training program, just different acronyms and stuff.
Board, do you have any questions? No. I would just like to say thank you. I know how challenging protecting and providing safety to such a large organization is, and how diverse our landscape is, our organization, the type of buildings we have, our populations, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Board, next on our agenda is the curriculum review first reading. I don't know if there's any questions at this time, but please make sure you're taking a look at those. Of course, we have the 2 art classes, desktop publishing and music for 4th grade. Next on the agenda is the MSBA January board report.
everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report for the month of January. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with an update on appointments to the State Board of Education and the search for a new Commissioner of Education. On January 3rd, the first day of the legislative session, Governor Greitens withdrew and then reappointed the 5 members of the State Board of Education who voted in December to fire Dr. Margie Van Dieven as Commissioner of Education. Because the 5 were reappointed after the Missouri Senate convened for its 2018 session, the Senate now has until the end of the session in May, rather than only 30 days, to confirm those appointments. But in the meantime, those 5 cannot serve on the State Board, leaving the board without a quorum to conduct official business. Senators from both parties have expressed concerns about the appointment process used by Governor Greitens, and there appears to be significant opposition to confirming the 5 appointees to the State Board of Education. Right now, it's not clear when or if the Senate committee that deals with appointments will hold hearings on the confirmation of those appointees. Meanwhile, the 3 current members of the State Board of Education held a public hearing on January 8th to hear comments on the search for a new Commissioner of Education. One of those who testified was MSBA President Jan Meese, who said the Commissioner of Education must possess qualities that instill in others the desire to do their best for all kids and to set the course for public education in our state.
The qualities associated with the job posting outline a variety of skills. However, high-level leadership is not necessarily a checklist. The role of the Commissioner of Education demands more. It is not about a personal agenda. It is not about preconceived notions of public education. It is about open-mindedness. It is about establishing a collaborative environment within the department which trickles down to our school districts. It is about establishing a framework to ensure student success. It is about listening to all voices. It is about ethics, attitude, loyalty, and sound judgment. It's about being a champion for the public schools of Missouri that are committed to serving every child who comes to our doors. It is about recognizing the power and the potential of public education and delivering to the citizens of Missouri a product that will shape the future of our state and nation.
The application window for the Commissioner of Education position opened on December 15th and closed on January 8th. Only 10 individuals have applied for the job. State Board of Education President Charlie Shields said at the conclusion of the public hearing, the search process for a new commissioner cannot move forward until the State Board of Education has a quorum. The 2018 session of the Missouri General Assembly is underway, and numerous education issues will once again be on the agenda for lawmakers, not the least of which is state funding for K-12 education. It will take a $98 million increase in the foundation formula to fully fund the basic state aid program for schools. $48 million of that would go toward new early childhood education funding triggered by a fully funded formula. MSBA Associate Executive Director for Advocacy, Mike Reed, says the budget will be challenging once again this year.
There are going to be a lot of demands in the budget. A number of places are going to be asking for increases in money, plus the fact that halfway through through this year, this fiscal year, we have a tax decrease coming in. So there's a real question on how much funds will be available for the chairman of the House Budget Committee and the Senate Budget Committee to work with. There'll be a lot more demands than we have appropriations available. And so that's going to be a really, really big topic for much of the year of where's the money going to come from and how are we going to split it up.
Governor Greitens and legislative leaders are estimating revenue growth of only 2.5% for the fiscal year beginning July 1st. They also cut the projected revenue growth for the current fiscal year to only 1.9%, down from the original estimate of 3.8%. Governor Greitens and some legislators are proposing additional state tax cuts that would reduce state revenue even more and threaten funding available for public education. Other issues likely to be considered once again in the General Assembly are expansion of charter schools throughout the state and voucher schemes such as education savings accounts that funnel public money to private schools that are not accountable to the public. MSBA will keep you informed about legislative developments during the session through our weekly Legislative Voice newsletter, periodic webinars during the session, our daily updates on Twitter, and through critical issue alerts. And be sure to mark your calendar for the MSBA Legislative Forum, Public Schools Day at the Capitol, scheduled for February 13th in Jefferson City. You can register for that event through the MSBA website. School board members throughout the state will be recognized for their work during School Board Recognition Week, January 21st through 27th. It's a great opportunity for communities to honor local school board members who provide leadership to our local school districts throughout the state. Check the MSBA website for resources related to School Board Recognition Week. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
All right, board, next on our agenda is the fiscal responsibility section. I would entertain a motion to approve the purchases over $7,500 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Ferguson, seconded by Mr. Haynes. Any discussion? By roll call?
Ms. Ferguson?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 6-0. Board, I'll entertain a motion to approve the tuition rates for the preschool and vacation station programs for the 2018-19 school year as shown in Exhibit 2 and 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mr. Lang. And board, if you recall, we did cover this in our last workshop, our last meeting. Is there any questions since then or concerns? Okay, by roll call.
Mr. Lang?
Aye.
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 6-0. All right, next on our agenda is the insurance update. Mr. Supple.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Cove. The only update I'd add in addition to what was provided to the board is that we've been working very diligently the past few weeks on our worksite clinic. Of course, we're partnering with Parkway in Pattonville. We had a meeting just this afternoon and are closing in on a potential finalists, and we hope to bring some information to the board in work session at the next meeting, and hopefully then move forward approval at our March meeting. So very excited about the opportunity for our plan members.
I'm very excited about that as well.
I just have a question. Is this for just our school district or for every school district under?
Yeah, for the worksite clinics or for
No,
insurance?
for the insurance.
For the insurance, Mr. Supple?
This is only for our school district, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Supple. I look forward to hearing more about that. It's a project that I've been excited about, so interested in seeing the progress there. All right, board, next on our agenda, I will entertain a motion to approve the December 2017 financial statements as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Ferguson, seconded by Mr. Haynes. Mr. Supple, anything? As presented. Board, any questions? By roll call.
Mr. Haynes?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 6-0. Board, I entertain a motion to approve the 2018-19 staffing plan as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lang, seconded by Mr. Haynes. We also covered this at our last workshop.
Mrs. Cope, I just have one change to be sure that the board is aware of. Yesterday, late in the day, we did find that DESE contacted us and shared an error in the funding formula for Title I funds, which indicated to us that we would not be able to make that third elementary school a Title I school. And so those positions that we had included in our staffing plan that would have been paid for by Title I funds have been removed. So you'll see a slight change in the memo. That was 1.5 FTE for certified staff and 1.8 for our non-certified staff. So those positions have been removed since the funding will not be available.
Thank you, Mrs. Sickens. Board, any other questions? We did see that email come across. By roll call.
Ms. Walker?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 6-0. Next on our agenda, we have an information section regarding the update for our strategic goals for the 2017-18 school year. We do have an upcoming working session this evening to talk about our strategic plan and our go forward opportunities. Dr. Hendricks-Harris, did you have anything to add there?
Now, twice a year, we update you on the goals and strategies that are in our current CSIP, and this is the presentation you see on board docs is that update for January. Again, we would like to focus on the new strategic plan this evening during work session, but if you have any questions or comments regarding this presentation, we're happy to answer them now.
Any questions at this time, board? Okay, great. All right, next on our agenda is our updates from our board members who attend strategic planning committees and providing updates on how those current committees are doing. ASPC, Mr. Lane.
Renee, as you see, we had just reviewed our curriculum for grades 4 and 5, desktop publishing 2, and then music for grade 4. Nicole, it's a good committee. There's about 30, 35 of us here. There's a lot of people, good community input, and so we go through the curriculum, and I think it's good for all of us to hear what's up and coming and the changes that have been made. Also, the team gives us updates on the strategic plan, where we're at with that, and they take a lot of time to explain the district data as compared to itself. District data is compared to the St. Charles County, St. Louis County schools, and then of course it's compared to the state. Okay.
Sounds like you guys are making some good progress.
Yep.
Okay. Mrs. Lang is not with us this evening. She is ill, so we'll hear from her at a later date. So Mrs. Ferguson, on finance and operations.
Yes, we had a good meeting. It started out where we had our update, and we had updates. Majority of the time we used in our subgroups. And I happen to be on one subgroup, so I don't know that much about the other subgroup, but my subgroup is moving along quickly. A lot of information that was given out by a couple of the patrons that made a lot of sense. Sometimes we get where we want things to move along faster than they do, but I saw wisdom in them slowing down and putting the process in place on what needs to actually happen first and what we need to be focusing on, and it made a lot of sense that you could go out, and I'm on the one with fundraising. You could fundraise and make all this money, and you can make it happen, and you can make it happen fairly quickly, but if you don't have set plans on what you're going to do with that. You can't just throw money at something and think it's going to work. You need to do the groundwork. You need to put everything together of what you're going to need. Like you could put in, an example they gave, you could buy, say, 2,000 iPads. So everybody has an iPad, but you're missing a piece when you're not putting the infrastructure in there, when you're not putting the different things you need to be able to maintain them, to work with them, and actually have a classroom that doesn't have mold in it. Those things that need to come first. So it was quite productive. We're moving forward, and our little thing is we each have to bring 5 people that we think would be very, very great for fundraising, that we want to target in our community. Could be doctors, lawyers, anybody we want that would have some influence, and give them that invitation to get them involved. And I've worked on my 5, so I'm excited about it. All right. Thank you very much. All right, board, next we'll move into our work session. So Eric, what we're gonna do now is our board will, we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and we'll go down here and sit, and we have some collaboration time. So we're talking about a new topic or something we wanted a little more information on. You are absolutely welcome to join us, or you may leave this evening, up to you. I don't know how much homework you have, or how you'd like to spend your evening. So at this time, that would be up to you. We are gonna take a 5-minute break.
Give me some ideas, man. So, are we going to use the microphone?
Right before we start our meeting?
Because these aren't
just recording, they're not for carrying, so. But these record. So that's why I'm thinking that, Jason, we don't need those, right?
Matt can use mine.
Because these are for recording, right?
Those are for recording, but if the board members want to hear themselves through the speakers, they would still use these.
For the audience to hear
For the
them.
audience on each table.
Yeah, okay. So Matt can use mine.
Matt can use yours.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That should be done.
This is for Renee, where she chooses to sit.
Ask Michelle where she would like to sit.
Michelle, where would you like to sit?
After I got it.
You have exposure right there.
I didn't even touch their fuckers. They get off. Did you ever watch Modern Family?
Oh, yes.
There was one episode, I don't know where Phil was, but they had him like on a stand that was around the casters with the iPad on there. I do. Moving around the house.
What'd you say?
You guys making fun of me talking about like a show when it was really funny or something?
No, Michelle, I said there was an episode of Modern Family where Phil, the dad, couldn't see everybody. He wasn't there, so he was on an iPad, but they had him on a stand that was on casters so they could easily move him around the party to be able to say hi to everybody. That's what I was thinking, you know. They've got this contraption now that you're sitting in.
This is your body right now. That's your body. Nice to be here.
And then for one of the pictures, Mary held your picture over her face.
Just kind of a disembodied head. Just kind of a head just floating.
Are you okay to be pointed towards this way, or do you want to be pointed towards Renee?
Do you want to be staring at Nicole and Matt?
Okay, I'll just leave you as is.
She's been staring at us the whole meeting.
I just would like a microphone.
So you, that's fine, she just wants to make sure you're here. Yes. I will take this one. Oh, I have hard copies for you guys, so do you want? Oh, I have. Oh, that's awesome, yes. So before we approve the yes, absolutely.
Like I had to go back. So I were in
Some ideas. Good.
And I wouldn't realize maybe she stopped me today. I was coming.
That's right.
I don't even know what it was or what she was.
I just,
Let me get in touch with her. Yeah. It's on its way. whatever, I don't even know. She just told me to tell Patrick about you, and she was like, what's going on?
Yeah,
She didn't forget.
Yeah, I said too. You know, give you some examples, but absolutely, I'll add both of those data
I'll
comments
move.
and welcome.
Because the packet is great.
It just makes it easier than trying to scroll.
Exactly.
And it's gone. To make me laugh. It's like really comments where I remember.
They were trying to
Hey, did you get an email today? Did you guys see the email about applying to be like a
Board of Governance?
Yeah.
I'm going.
So I'd be willing to get one of those designations or certifications, but we gotta have another person get one too.
Yeah, because I'm going up to master. You have to have one master, one advanced, and then I'm going to Jeff City on the 13th.
I'll submit the application.
I'm here, I'm in Jeff City right now.
I see.
I have to read a book. That'd be
So we'll do that.
I just have to write.
That'll put us in there automatically.
I just have to read the book. So I've got
I've already read it. I just got
$14 billion
silly paper. I know.
Yeah.
I can do a report.
Is this your third term?
I'll call you.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
What an amazing difference, huh?
All right. Oh,
Yeah.
ready?
We're gonna get an award. That's wonderful.
I'll go grab it.
I'll just get this.
Yeah, these are for
Perfect.
all the documents that are assigned to the work session.
Perfect.
There's hard copies if you're.
I don't know that you need to hand out that first one.
Well, I know.
I think too.
I just brought it over.
Yeah, thank you. You do what you have to do.
Yes, yes.
We appreciate it. Oh, we have everybody? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I'm with Michelle. I'm really not by myself.
I know, I counted Michelle. I see her.
You see her, okay.
She's the only comfortable one over there. No.
Yeah.
All right, board, as we enter our work session, our first topic is transportation. And Mrs. Lang had brought that forward, and of course, she is out sick this evening. Poor thing has influenza, running a fever, so we ask that she didn't share those germs with us.
Just stay where she's
So, board, I would entertain a motion to postpone this agenda item of transportation to a future meeting so she can participate.
So moved.
Second. Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Ferguson. Any discussion on that?
Actually, Mrs. Combs, since we're in the work session,
Mhm.
I think we just
Oh, we don't
have
even need,
consensus.
we're just have consensus. Thank you, Mr. Supple. Everybody good
Consensus.
with that?
We're good.
All right. So if we can postpone that until a later date, please. All right, our second topic for work session, again, no voting required, just discussion, is talking about the strategic plan. So we have some hard copies here that I'll pass around to anybody that would like a copy. That's that way.
No, you're getting, you have to like it, you're getting.
And this one.
Nope, and you're getting this one too.
All right.
You have Mary, Chad.
And Michelle, it's all online, even though we're looking at hard copies. You got them? Okay.
I've seen it on the 89 or whatever pages.
Yep. All right, Dr. Hendricks Harris.
Yeah, so you do have two documents there. One is the PowerPoint that I'm going to present to you tonight, and one is the strategic plan documents. So I don't know which one you want to follow along in, but I'll be going through the PowerPoint. So tonight I'm happy to present the strategic plan. This will be our roadmap for the next 5 years. The framework is a result of many conversations with our patrons, with our parents, educators, administrators, community partners, and our students. As we look at the plan tonight, please keep in mind, this is one of those governing documents that the board will use during the next 5 years to hold the district accountable. So, this week, we had our new candidate training, and one of the things that they talked about was the board is in charge of focusing on the ends, not the means, and this plan really does show what the ends are. So this is a board document that should be used for government. So especially want you to pay attention to this as one of those very important documents from the board. This first slide really shows the steps of the strategic planning process. 6 have been completed to date, so you can see all the way up through plan approval has been completed. There are also 4 major documents and 3 major opportunities for input that have been outlined here. Really going to go through those throughout the presentation tonight. First thing I wanted to show was just the strategic plan team membership. You can see we have a variety of stakeholders, including administrators, teachers, support staff, parents, community members, board members, and a highlight for many were the 10 students that were on the committee. We began the process, what seems like forever ago, but was just last spring with a core team meeting where the process was outlined with that core team. And then later in May, we met with the CEC facilitator who helped us do 2 things. One, identify the sites for the community meetings and do some problem solving around that. And also helped us narrow down the data that we have in regards to perception data that we would be sharing with not only the community but with the strategic plan team as we developed our plan. And we call that the environmental scan. Then as we started the school year, the whole strategic plan team met for the first time on August 26th. And they met to learn about strategic planning, what the process was, and their roles. The next meeting, the team spent the day reviewing the perception data, or that environmental scan, and the full data presentation that I know you have all seen because you attended that community engagement meeting. So we went through that data. Based on that environmental scan and that current reality data that you all are familiar with, the team then developed a draft of the SWOT analysis. That was what the group viewed as the district's current strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
So we spent months, literally months, identifying and compiling the data for the presentation that was used to provide context and background information at the community engagement meetings. And we didn't pull any punches when we determined the numbers that we were going to use to help define the current state of the district. Each of the chiefs and Rich Wilson presented on their specific area. But Mary was the closer. This is one of the favorite picks of Mary because A, she's talking with her hands, which she often does, and B, this is the slide where she got to talk about many of the great things that we've accomplished in the district. One of the reasons that we selected CEC to facilitate our strategic planning was because the community engagement portion of their model was so much more robust than any of their competitors. We then made it even bigger, adding a 3rd day of meetings so that each of our high schools could host, and also ensuring a more equal representation across the district. Each high school hosted 3 different meetings, one for students, one for staff, and one for community members. So if you're keeping score at home, that's 9 different community engagement meetings. We shared the aforementioned data presentation, and then participants had a chance to provide feedback on the SWOT analysis created by the strategic plan team. Students had a pared down version of the data presentation, but they had the same opportunity to provide feedback on the SWOT analysis. They seemed genuinely appreciative to be part of the process. We used a variety of communications channels to share information about the community engagement meetings, including district and building websites, district and building e-news, social media, earned media, paid advertising in Mid-Rivers News Magazine and community news, both hard copy and online, and of course, even our school marquees. Anyone who was unable to participate in the community engagement meetings had the opportunity to provide input as part of the SWOT survey that opened immediately after the meetings. More than 500 stakeholders took the opportunity to be part of the process, and all of the input from the strategic plan team, the 9 community engagement meetings, and the survey were used by CEC to create the final SWOT analysis.
So here is the final SWOT analysis. In the end, the strategic plan, as Matt said, reviewed all the input and made adjustments. Some things to know. Core student outcomes continue to be a strength for Francis Howell. Weaknesses included the need to address struggling learners, underrepresented groups, career readiness, technology, and resources. Opportunities included a focus on career paths, partnerships, increasing resources, and a focus on 21st century skills in instruction, time, and space. Threats include concerns about future funding, hiring shortages, and class size inequities. The next meeting, we began to work on a mission, vision, and values. In addition to the SWOT consideration, the strategic plan team reviewed several visionary education systems in schools from across the nation and the world. The mission and vision and values were then drafted. After that draft, more input was sought. This time 261 participants responded. You can see a summary of the responses in your strategic plan document. This final document outlines our mission, vision, and values. You can see there's been some changes to our core values since last time, with words like partnership, innovation, customer service, and transparency being included in our new values that have, as well as values that might have been expected or were in our previous values. The vision includes a focus on the 4 C's, plus character, life skills, and real-world learning, technology, and a flexible and inclusive environment. The vision includes a focus on student owning and learning their learning, and a focus on collaborative partnerships. In November, the group took all the documents and feedback and their learning into consideration as we finally got to the point of drafting a strategic plan and specifically focusing on goals and strategies. More than 1,500 district stakeholders responded to the final plan survey, and respondents overwhelmingly approved the final version of the strategic plan. 94% agreed the mission statement captured the essence of why Francis Hall School District exists, and 96% agreed with the vision and the core values. 92% said the plan will set the right direction for the district. Our CEC facilitators stated that the approval percentages were some of the highest they had ever seen in the final survey in any school district. Final meeting of the group was held just last month. At this meeting, due to the high percentage of positive feedback, small refinements were made to the plan. So in the goals and strategies section, you can see goal areas. One area, life, college, career, and success. Another is engaging learning environment, staff leaders and organizational performance, engaged family and community partnerships, and resource effectiveness and efficiencies. 2 strategies have been written for each area, and those are included in this document. I'm not going to read them to you, not that I could from there, but you can see a focus on social and emotional student needs, technology, career programs, equitable and flexible facilities, and previous focus areas of continuous improvement, college readiness, and partnerships. So as we bring you the plan tonight, we will be asking for approval next month. In the spring, we'll be working on a transition to the new plan, including additional training on living and monitoring our new plan, writing specific action steps aligned to the strategies, and aligning our current processes to the new strategic work. Specific next steps include realigning our committees, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, finalizing our scorecard or our key performance indicators, especially for year 1, and then again developing that granular action steps of how we're going to get there. So this is a shift. The core team discussed what it would take to roll out their plan, and their recommendation is new committee structures. In the new structure, there would be an oversight small group in every core area. This would be 10 to 12 members who would monitor the goals and strategies, review data, and report out to the board twice per year on the progress. So every goal area would have that level of committee. This group would be internal and external, but external members would be required to have expertise in the goal area. It was the thought of this group, this would make the work more meaningful and focused. There would also be a larger group. This might be more similar to our current strategic plan groups. This group would stay informed and be asked for feedback when it is important and needed. This group would likely start by meeting quarterly, and we believe this structure would allow for the work to be more meaningful and focused. The third structure, the third group would be action teams or work groups is another way to think about it. This would really be a specialized group that could work on the strategies themselves. This group would be primarily internal people who do the work, but we would also consider external experts, likely selected from that advisory committee, and they may be used to help us complete some of those more granular steps in the everyday work. And the last thing I wanted to include, this is just a draft, we have not completed this yet, but in addition to the change of committee structure, it's time to revamp our accountability. As we look to our new goal areas, we need to identify key performance indicators that will be reported to the board. These need to be aligned to our new plan. This may be what these are gonna look like, so this is my first go at it, although we do need to have some further discussion and to refine this. Again, this is the ends work that the board will be monitoring in future years. Before I open it up for questions, I want to thank all of those who were involved in the strategic plan team. The group was an outstanding group of thinkers who made sacrifices to be in those full-day meetings. They worked hard to outline this course that we presented tonight. They were there for the right reasons, and they were very thoughtful. I want to thank Executive Cabinet and Jen Henry for making the data presentation that Matt mentioned took a while, and the community engagement meetings meaningful and well received. Throughout the process, I heard many comments about those community engagement meetings, and I would say even those that came expecting to not have a positive experience shared positive comments with me about the structure and the planning of that evening. So I really do want to thank those people. It was a great experience. With that, I'll open it up for questions. Let me rephrase that. What questions do you have about the strategic plan?
I have a couple comments. So, first, I'd like to say that I was extremely satisfied with CEC. I'm glad that we chose an external provider. I think they brought some resources to the table and some ideas that maybe we would not have looked at internally. So I'm very pleased that with the facilitator that we chose and that it was external. I'd like to say I was part of the core team and so participated all the way through, and I truly enjoyed the process. It made me reevaluate a couple things that I had preset in my mind and think differently about a few things. So I really enjoyed the process. I think it was well thought out, and it helped us all look at ourselves as well as where we wanted to go in the future. So I think they did a great job helping us get there. And I enjoyed some of the comments that Perry made regarding our participation. The group that we had really engaged and had constructive dialogue, outside of the box thinking, and followed Perry's lead through the process, but really engaged amongst the tables and across tables to get to some good solutions. So I just wanted to express out of the gate that I am very confident and pleased with the process and the results.
Renee, thank you for so much time that you spent on that core group. I'm sure you.
She's froze.
Oh, you froze.
You froze.
You froze, Michelle. There, you're back.
You're buffering.
Or no, now you're not. And she's gone. Oh.
She said something nice and she's gone. Oh my God.
You're back.
You're back.
It's against her nature.
I get all freaked out when I say something nice.
I think we can hear you now.
She wants to hear it again.
Just to be sure we heard it right.
Well, I would think that it was actually really in detail, especially with the overwhelming every 94, 96%. I mean, that's almost perfection.
Yeah, I'll reiterate some of the things that Renee said. It was a good process. We, it was broken down in a little bitty. It's like, how do you, when you start out doing something like this, it's the old adage, how do you eat an elephant? It was one bite at a time. And they broke it down into small enough segments that you could analyze each segment and then build on that as we went along. So we built everything in little segments, and it all came together at the end. I don't know that anybody thought it was all going to come together when we started, but it all came together. So, I mean, it was really a good process. The only question that I have is, I know that we have some of these things, and we currently have a variety of committees. Are we going to have to change or create new committees to meet these indicators or these types of things?
Yeah, so in that last slide there, or one of those last slides, I have those new committees. So I do think that our current strategic committees are meeting every month, and they have a purpose, but I do think the new committee structure with the advisory and the standing and the strategy teams, the work groups, are going to provide for more meaningful opportunities to focus on the strategic plan work. So yes, I do think we're revamping committees. We're gonna have advisory committees and goal oversight committees aligned to our new goals. And then we'll have some groups, some smaller groups working on the action steps and the strategies. I think one of the things that we talked about on the core team was some of our current strategic work not being as meaningful, and how do we make it more aligned. And so that was the structure that we talked about with that core group. I think we really need to tap into people with expertise in our goal areas, especially for that more granular work of action steps and oversight. So community members being part of advisory groups, but the standing work of overseeing the goal area and working on the work group being people with expertise.
So although I have touted with strong accolades on how great the process was in the group, I do have one concern with the final document that I'd like to propose to the board. If you look at the one-pager, which is in the big packet, so this is our new proposed mission, values, and vision. And so under values, we have quite a few things listed there. And high expectations, continuous improvement, engagement, collaboration and partnerships, innovation, safety, trust, respect, inclusiveness, customer service and satisfaction, accountability, and transparency. So I think those are all things we strive for in our values. I would like to consider that customer service and satisfaction be removed. A couple of reasons. One, I think the list is too long, but also along with that, although we strive for customer service across our district in many areas, I think it gets, there's things that override it, trump it, such as student safety, no tolerance for bullying, and other things in a school district that we have to work with that may not be customer service focused. In just that phrase. And although we strive there in several areas, to me, I recommend that it's not listed as one of our values. However, this is what the committee came up with, so I don't want to overshadow what a large group came up with. There were varying opinions in the room, and ultimately this is what surfaced from a large group.
So I just would have a couple things to say. One is, as I said at the beginning, this is the board document. So if you remember back to your board training when you were a new board member, and they talked about the documents that are really board documents, the strategic plan is the board document. And so while we did have a group identify what their recommendation was, I do think the board needs to own this document because this is one of your key government documents. So I think if the board is not comfortable with something in it, you do have an opportunity to make a change at this point, and I think the committee would be very understanding. I do think that, sorry, I did it again. So then thinking about the fallout for that would be, we have aligned some goals and some strategies that I would say are kind of along the lines of customer service. So traditionally, we have worked on school climate, we have given parent surveys, student surveys, staff surveys, and I don't want to say if that's not our value, maybe I do want to say that. If that's not a value, I'm not sure that that would necessarily be tied to a key performance indicator that the board would hold us accountable to. So it's not to say that we would just stop monitoring that, but when we report out to you twice a year on how the district is doing, I wouldn't see that if that's not the value as being something that we would report out on. So it might be something we would monitor, but really trying to focus on the data points we're going to report out to you are going to be on those key things. And so just want the board to be aware that I think that that would then be something that would, I'm not going to say go away completely, but would not be an area of focus for the district. Which I think is what you're saying.
And it is, because I think this list is too long, is another component of it. I think there's some areas that we really need to focus on strongly, right? So we have some less focused areas that maybe not listed out in a core value. And I just think that is a secondary.
I think,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Well, I think, when you're, going through the custom. Hello? Is that better?
Yes.
Just speak loud.
Just talk
We
loud.
got
Just,
mics all over the place.
just talk loud. When you're looking at the customer service and the satisfaction, when you go up a couple above, engagement, collaboration, all that, that encompasses all of that. So you don't really need to spell it out because it's already there. So it doesn't need to be another line on there, because to me, it's incorporated already in there. You would just do that.
Mr. Hayden?
And I guess, you know, I think we're gonna put, and these are in no specific order, these are just randomly placed. And I can see the board, or I can see that core group actually ranking these in the order of which they believe that they're more important. Customer service and satisfaction, it's like anything else. We're a public entity, you know, we provide education to the kids, and customer service in any business, whether it be public or private, is an important aspect of it. And I don't know that we should eliminate it, but I think maybe it needs to slide down the list or be toward the bottom of the list, because regardless, customer service is customer service. And you know, I think that's something that is important. It's important in anything that we do. And you know, it can go down the list, because I think we currently do a good job of that in most applications, but I don't know that I would want to necessarily remove it. But I think if we prioritize this list, then I think that you know, it would fall toward the bottom of the list.
Mary, why did customer service come out? Because I see customer service as an accountability, customer service as trust and respect, innovation, so it's encompassed in all those other areas. So I feel like we're losing the respect of what the committee wanted. Something came out that we need to be responsible and provide good customer service and satisfaction to our children and to our parents that send our children to the district. So I don't want to take something out that it was important from more than one person that be included. Do you know why? Because
So it wasn't at every table. I just know that it was a theme that came through. And I do think that we have been a customer service school district. And so it doesn't surprise me that came through. So for example, if you look at perception data, which was provided to the committee, there is customer service data that was provided to them. And so in looking at what was there, I'm sure that, I would assume that in looking at that data, they wanted to continue to track that. So customer service to our students and our staff and our families is important. And they were looking at data that outlined those things. I think that was just the conversation. I'm assuming that was the conversation at the tables.
So I'll have to bring with Mike to
Renee
maybe
was
move
there,
it
and
down
Matt
the
was
list.
there, and Kevin was there. I don't know if you would have anything to add, but Mike.
I feel like it should stay, maybe like Mike said, put it down on the list there, but as a team, if they value that as a value, then we should leave it there.
The only thing that I would add is that I do think that there are aspects of the organization that we might not immediately think about when we're talking about the strategic plan, but the areas that I oversee are very customer service focused. So we really see ourselves as supports for the educational process, and that takes shape in many ways. It's making sure people get paid on time, and that the benefit questions get answered, and that the buildings are clean, and that the heating works when it's supposed to, and the grass gets cut, and all those things. So I do think there's a whole segment of the organization that really is a support structure for our core business, which is education. And there's a tremendous amount of customer service in that area. Now, as to whether it has to be one of our values, that, I don't know, but there certainly is a large portion of our organization that sees itself as customer service representatives.
Hey, let me say this also. It's been a focus for us. It's been an unwritten focus for us. So when I look at our current values, it's not there. And I'll tell you that we are all very, the district, not just us, but the district has been very focused on customer service.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, and I can't tell you that this is something that's important to me. It's along the lines of what Sandy said. I see customer service in everything we do. So whether we want to call it out here or not, it's not something I'm willing to die on the sword for. I expect customer service in everything we do. So it's not the end of the world for me. Just trying to hone in. Ultimately, I think the list is long, and I want to make sure that if we're focused in the right areas. And if that is an underlying continuum in everything we do, doesn't have to be called out. That was my only point.
I agree.
So are we going to leave it as it is?
Yes.
Is that the...
Thank you for providing some clarity.
Right, it didn't seem like that. So I think it sounds like we're gonna leave it as it is.
We
Everybody?
can certainly move it to the end of the list.
Yeah.
I can tell you the survey data indicated that while consensus was reached on all of these values, it was further down on the list.
Move it down.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, not something.
It's pretty good if that's the only issue, you know?
Yeah, and so I directed the conversation on that because that was something I noticed. This is a large document, lots of information. This is the work session where we can have these great conversations. I can tell you that I do love that it's a one-pager. That obviously there's a lot behind that one page, but I love that I have a piece that I can share with folks. Is there any other questions, concerns? We had some good comments.
I guess the one thing that really stands out to me when you look at all this, or if you look at what we have up here is provide. I like the part in here that prepares students to take responsibility for their learning. That's the key thing that I think that overrides all this. It's the students have to take that responsibility. We can't take it for them. We can provide them the tools, but they have to take it. And I think it's great that we're putting it out there. And I think that's one of the most overriding things that we've got out there.
And I think one of the keys in that statement is that it's our job to prepare them to take that responsibility. So it's not just, I taught it and if you didn't get it, I'm moving on. That is certainly not something that we would want to get focused on. But it is making sure that they're prepared to take that ownership of their own learning. And I think the committee had a lot of discussion about student-driven learning. And I know we had a lot of conversation on 21st Century Task Force about that, but students taking ownership and personalizing their own learning moving forward as being a focus for the district.
I think it's a partnership, and I think that's one of the underlying themes that runs throughout the strategic plan.
We're excited to get going on the next step, concerned about the transition, so we do have a current plan in place. We have all of our school improvement plans aligned to our current plan. We have been doing that for many years and transitioning over to realigning all of our improvement plans across the district, the new committees, looking at some new indicators for accountability for the district. The transition is probably what makes us most anxious, but once we get everything transitioned over, it's going to be exciting to begin the work.
Okay. Michelle, I see you. Did you have any comments? No, you're good. Okay.
I think it's long. The only comment that I would have is that maybe we consider condensing to a one-page short form, because I would venture to say that none of our patrons are ever going to go through all 80-something pages.
Oh, there it is.
Yes, I think when we go to post it, Michelle, we will just post that one-page front and back document. So I really wanted, one of the things that made me nervous about tonight that Laura and Matt can tell you was, I don't want to just give them the 2 pages. I want them to see everything that went into it. So I want people to see posted on our website all of the data that went in, all of the surveys, all of the input that we received. So I think that is one part of what gets posted, but I also think that one-page front and back being our key working document that we'll be moving forward with will be posted as the strategic plan.
She gave us thumbs
It's all there on our strategic plan page now if you want to take a look.
Yes, but we do have a one-page plan.
2 sides. Small font.
8-point font, but it's too big.
It's the thickest one-page document.
Great conversation. Anything else around our strategic plan? It's one of the biggest things we're gonna do. I'm very excited about it. A lot of work has gone into it already, and we've just begun. Okay. All right, great. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is superintendent comments.
I just have a few of them. Last night, we had our greatest turnout for our parent speaker series. The topic was parenting your anxious child. And our presenter was our own Shannon Harding. We had over 200 parents spend the evening learning about anxiety and strategies to support their own children. It was a full house. There wasn't a parking spot to be had. Don't ask me how I know. Just like last month, I want to recognize our facility staff who, even as we speak, are working on a broken water main break. Their efforts continue to keep our schools functioning with our recent weather challenges, and we appreciate them. On February 3rd, the district will hold its first informal open house to share information, provide feedback on resumes, and get to know prospective teaching candidates, so we're very excited about that event coming up. Some updates from across the district. Course enrollments have begun for our next school year. High schools are having their open houses, building budgets are beginning to be built, and we will begin planning for spring testing. Summer school enrollment has begun, and we're anticipating more than filling all of our STEM-related summer opportunities. In second semester, all school leadership teams from our buildings will report out on their progress towards their building goals and their action steps. To administrators, we call these our site visits, and the board is invited to attend any of those. So if you're interested in attending a site visit, please contact Laura. And then last but not least, I wanted to update you. We have received over $5,000 in contributions for our Lunch Heroes program. The donations, as you probably know from community members and staff, provide funds for students who no longer have funds in their lunch accounts. This is an example of what makes our community great. Special thanks to Cindy Rauman and Jen Henry for making this happen.
And Dr. Hendricks-Harris, would you mind talking a moment about the board candidates? We have 4, is that right?
Sure, we do have 4. So our 2 incumbents, Chad Lang and Sandy Ferguson, will be running again. Janet Stiglich is here in the audience with us. Janet is the former lead nurse in the district and also a community member. And then, thank you. Last but not least is Brian Higginbotham, who did not attend board candidate training last night, so I don't know as much about him.
Thank you very much. Board, next on the agenda is our Board of Education requests. Are there any requests currently from the board for the cabinet? Information? Okay.
Ms. Cook, I know that
Yes.
you know this, but I wanted to share with the board that next month is the National Conference for Superintendents, and I will be attending this year, so Mr. Sullivan will be handling the board meeting.
That means prepare lots of questions. No.
And he'll take them all in stride.
Absolutely.
You're not gonna be on iPad.
We will be in good hands. Board upcoming meetings, so let's take a look at that February meeting that Mr. Supple will be helping us with. Anything to add or change on that meeting?
Mrs. Cook, we will add that work session for the worksite clinic.
No.
Great. Any other adjustments? Okay. If we can take a look at our March 15th meeting. Any additions or changes to that meeting at this time? Okay. Board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Walker, seconded by Mr. Lane, by roll call.
Ms. Walker,
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.